faction, let's say. Well, do you know what they called Mandela Barnes over on the right? Heard a couple of different machinations of, trashing the political opponent. Earlier, your girl, Vicky McKenna, she calls him the lesser Mandela. He, of course, is the other Mandela.
His Twitter feed being the other Mandela, yes.
And earlier today, on this radio station out of Warsaw, this woman, female host, who was riding shotgun, I didn't quite understand the pairing with Brian Schimming, former vice chair of the Republican Party, and he's often on iHeart products in Madison and Milwaukee. He fills in for Vicky.
Wasn't he also like appointed to WIDA or something like that during the Walker administration?
He was supposed to fold WIDA in to WEDIC, and they were going to make like a super agency, and this talk radio guy was going to head it up on behalf of the Walker administration.
I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Because if you're a talk radio guy or gal, you're qualified to do absolutely everything.
Well, he was also part of the Republican Party establishment. That's really what qualified him. But Brian came down to the old Brady Street studio, signed the lobby table. Remember the signature table we had?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm driving in northern Wisconsin, getting up there, and they got this big AM signal. I'm listening to it, very close to the 540 AM signal. See how I found it? And this woman calling him Con Mandela was paired with Brian Schimming. And Brian Schimming was like all in. You know what I mean? They were using two shovels and they were trying to bury Mandela together. Like we do occasionally, just much less dynamically.
Of course.
Than we would. And it was just interesting to me because it was a beautiful fall day. The weather was entirely different in northern Wisconsin. When I was listening to Ascos, Wisconsin, our friend Kristen Bry, she plays up there, her and Jane, and I'm in Amory listening to this, and the colors, they're beautiful, it's gorgeous, not quite peak. Give it another, 4 days to a week. Then it will be peak colors in northern Wisconsin. But the weather was entirely different. And I felt like the political climate was significantly different. And, talk radio, it moves slowly. It takes time to build an audience. There are people right now hearing us for the very first time. And what a wonderful product they're finding. And, as I spent as much time in the car today, is when you and I drove through to Cleveland and the RNC.
Oh, yeah.
How long a drive was that? About 8 hours?
I've done that today. About that, yeah.
I've done that today. I've driven to Cleveland today, Dom. So anyways, and do you remember what we did when we got down to Cleveland? We crashed Scott Walker's party.
Oh, shooters on the lake. Yeah.
Not to say we're not social creatures. And then we actually got into Scott Walker's party, and you sat down the bar from Scott Walker, and you didn't even buy the man a drink. What kind of Wisconsinite in a state of Ohio crashing a man's party? He's all depressed because he wanted to be the president so badly. And when you say Donald Trump put a cigarette out on his ass, as soon as Donald Trump entered the race, Scott Walker became politically unnecessary. He was like white bread, and Trump was like orangey marble rye. He was like a whole new spicy bread. And Scott Walker,
it's like pumpkin bread, man. It's that time of year.
Oh yeah, pumpkin spice bread or something of the sort. But Scott Walker, he became politically unnecessary at that time, didn't he, Tom?
0.0.
And we were at the RNC convention. And we were there at the after party. Dave Blaska kind of sort of invited us, and then we, took the rest from there. Come on down to the party, the Scott Walker party, the Republican party at Shooters on the River. I'm sure they'll let you in if you tell them Dave Blaska invited you. So we did. And then they said no. And then we went out to the car, to go down to, I think it was Larry Flood's club we were going to next, downtown Cleveland. Just another short drive. And they came chasing us. They wanted us down. It felt so good to be wanted.
No, come back, come on in.
Oh, you're from Wisconsin? You got a shiny car? Will you help us retire some of Scott Walker's campaign debt?
Write it off.
We did not. I did not give him a donation, Dom. And
I did not buy Scott Walker.
I know, why not?
Because that's that guy, man. I did him a favor by not engaging with him. That was my gift to Scott Walker that night.
Is that the longest road trip? I mean, I know probably the farthest you and I went together was out to San Diego. We got in the plane, flew to LA, and then we drove down to a Bernie Sanders rally.
Fly to LA, drive to San Diego, just down the street. Oh my God.
It was only 3 more hours. That's still less than I spent traveling today because it was a direct flight to LA. It was only the 3-hour drive on top. Well, that's still only 7 hours, Dom. I got you beat. Today. So anyways, we've enjoyed some road trips. And, I would like to think that we will start shaping the entire state of Wisconsin. Once you get into a community, I'm going to start shaping every corner of the state down. I have this tremendous new respect for different regions of the state. I didn't even know there was a St. Croix Valley. Now we got 2 radio stations there. So I'm excited. Yeah. Not just the super duper news talker, but also Country Stick. We'll roll that one out about a month. But here's the point. First and foremost, civic media on the march. So some days I'm going to come a little less prepared. Is
that possible?
Like 8 hours. And tomorrow on this big show, in the 5 o'clock, in the happy hour, maybe 5:30-ish, we'll confirm. We're going to bring on the CEO of Civic Media. And we're going to talk about the expansion of the network and the many travels we're going to do all across the state. And, my voice is traveling. They can hear me in Emory right now, Dom, echoing off the lakes. It's lake country. It's beautiful up there. Sort of fall, sunny even today. Sage Wild joins us tomorrow, CEO of Civic Media, my partner. And additionally, tomorrow on the big show, Dom, Charles Franklin, pollster extraordinaire, Marquette University Law School polling. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. I mean, Charles and Charles, we had him Friday. He's coming on Wednesday. Again, that's tomorrow. And then he's going to join us again, this coming Friday?
Well, first Thursday, we're going to have the very special playout, Dom, of the J6 committee hearings. They go live on Thursday.
Live at noon.
Devil's Advocates, I expect, will recap after that big event. And then Friday night, the singular gubernatorial debate. We're going to play it here right on Civic Media, Dom, all across the state where we're not playing high school football, including beautiful Amory, Wisconsin, Lake Air. I've been everywhere, buddy. I've been piling on the miles. I got a lease.
Good luck with that.
Well,
it's a write-off, Jerry.
I knew I was going to have to buy out the lease when I wrapped it in the devil wagon. You know what I mean? I already kind of had a plan with that, but, I'm blowing through the miles. Come back with us, Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We're going to talk some politics and talk to you, but only if you dial 844-967-2789. New listeners all across this beautiful state of Wisconsin, welcome.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
please be done.
over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Suddenly, my
show
quarterback,
your mother
the
warned
number
you
one
about.
trending topic. Why, you might ask, is Aaron Rodgers trending on Twitter. He's out this game. He's got COVID-19. And to my perception, fucking lied to us, man. I'm very frustrated that he is not eligible to play this Sunday, especially when you find out your quarterback is a half a Trumpster. And he claims, I'm not a flat earther, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just play one in the NFL. That pisses me off, man. I was going to bet on that
Weekday afternoons from 3 to 6.
New time, 3 to 6 p.m. And Dom.
never have met
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At
30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show.
Phone lines always open for our audience. 844-967-2789. Dan Schaffer from the Recombobulation Area blog going to join us at the bottom of the hour. I appreciate you being on the roll, man. I appreciate what you and Sage and the team are doing, opening up all these news stations around the state of Wisconsin. But is this when you were up there? I know you're a radio guy, man, so I know you're flipping through all the dial and seeing what's up.
Don't stop believing today. I made a request of our fair Calvin. Play it for me, Calvin. Reminds me of the final Sopranos episode.
Oh, classic. Journey. But when you talk about hearing some of these, long-term Republican operatives that are now, on the radio again, coming up with nice little tag names for Mandela bars. Mandela bars. That's how they do it. And I get it. We call Rojo, call people names occasionally. That's kind of the gist. You gotta have some tough skin if you're going to be in the game. I can understand that. But I guess my question is, when you're up there and you scan these channels, is there any other pushback other than the churchy, the country, and the right-wing talk radio? What else is there? Classic rock country?
Yes, there is many country stations in the great state of Wisconsin.
Many.
There is some rock and roll. Usually there's a few oldie sticks around. Lots of churchy stations in the state of Wisconsin. Apparently, if you get into rural Wisconsin, it is very churchy, let's just say. And then right-wing news talk, righty-whitey talk. We've talked about it before. 81 stations across the state of Wisconsin now. This is a dominating format. And then, of course, there is this recent move by partner Sage. And, I'd like to say I played my small part, Dom. But we are moving to counter the 81 right-wing talk radio stations that collectively pump out 235 hours a day, according to statistical analysis by the UW back in 2016. They're cracking out 235 hours a day of content. Now, I feel quite proud. We're cranking out like 16 hours a day of live content each and every weekday. And when you factor in the fact that we've got like 4 morning shows going on between 8 and 11, we're probably cranking out 25, 30 hours of content each and every day live. So if you prefer this or prefer that, there are different hosts on the menu, Dom. But it takes time. And it takes audience. And it doesn't stop at the water's edge. I've often said that about talk radio. Talk radio doesn't stop with the audience, because the audience, they repeat what we say, and I mean that in the best sort of way. At least if you're listening to this fine radio product, because we're smart. We're going to give you good ideas, and you're going to build on our good ideas, and you're going to be well equipped to go have these conversations with your friends in the Northwoods, or the western part of Wisconsin, or maybe up in the Fox Valley. We're up in the Fox Valley now, Dom. But no one's even tried to push back on these narratives. That's some of the problem. That is why Wisconsin Democrats, we're doing great in Dane County. Dane County's blue, as blue can get. And
Dane County better overperform once again this election cycle if we want to have a chance.
We're adding about 2,000 registered voters per year here in Dane County. Adding about 2,000 registered voters per year. Vast majority of them are Democratic voting and fans of the Devil's Advocates radio show, I suspect. But most of the growth in the state of Wisconsin has happened right here in Dane County. But this little output, this little civic media, this is I would say, Dom, is the first time anyone's endeavored to counter-narrative. They answer the call. And I would say, we find ourselves in interesting times where, today is 4 weeks until election day, until the midterms.
Wow.
And, there are a lot of these stations that are new to civic media that are being posed with some quandaries, Tom. Do we accept ads from the right? Well, if it's a candidate and they're qualified, they're on the ballot, not only do we accept them, we have to extend to them preferential rates, not because they're righties, because they're qualified candidates. But everybody else, when it was just lonely old crew out there, you and I and Fancy Brad and a few of our friends doing radio, Dom, wasn't that big a deal, right? We didn't get inundated with super PAC asks for airtime quotes.
Right.
You know who's getting inundated right now? Civic media.
Yeah.
Right now. By the right. The right-wing political super PACs are filling up my sales director's phone right now. And we are putting deep considered thought into how we're going to handle this situation. And hopefully Sage has got all your final answers.
It is a quandary. And again, so for clarity's sake, if a candidate qualified for the ballot approaches you or any other media outlet and wants to run an ad, number one, you have to sell it to them at the lowest possible rate.
Lowest unit cost.
So you can't just not say no. You have to say yes. And also, beyond saying yes, beyond being required to take that, you also have to give him or her the lowest rate possible.
And that is pertinent. We have accepted candidate ads for Republican candidates because it's necessary and required that we do so.
From the FCC. But as it pertains to super PACs or special interests or the NRA or any other outside type of group, there is no such requirement from the FCC as it pertains to them, correct?
Well, hopefully my partner is getting excellent counsel. Excellent counsel, making sure we've, dotted our I's and crossed our T's down. But what have you asked me a couple times? You got a cash check from Nazis, Crudy? No, I think you're being slightly hyperbolic.
Just very slightly, barely slightly.
The Nazis haven't actually tried to buy any ads around here, but the NRSC and other groups that, don't acknowledge small d democracy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
You don't have to be a Democrat, man. I'm okay if you're a Republican. But if you lose the election, go home. Game's over. Try again next year. That's the way it's supposed to happen. Come back, Dan Schaffer from the Recombobulation Area blog, our fine guest at 4:30.
From Baraboo, bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Devil Radio.
Are those different inputs?
Wisconsin. You know that Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez are champions on the court. But did you know they're also champions for our community?
Hey, Wisconsinites. Drew Holiday here.
Hey, Brooke Lopez here.
I love being a champion.
And today I'm asking you to be a champion too. A champion citizen.
Defend your right to vote and exercise your freedom to vote. I want you to make sure you're registered to vote.
It's more important now than ever because politicians are trying to restrict our freedom to vote.
I think I know why.
They're worried about our
Rank
power.
Seed has been breeding better seeds for generations. Each year, Rank invests tens of millions of dollars to support DNA-level breeding and new trait development. This dedication to research has resulted in numerous insect-resistant...
myvote.wi.gov.
Defend your right to vote and exercise your freedom to vote. That's how you can be a champion too.
Just go to myvote.wi.gov to register to vote. Paid for by the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished the day mixed. The Dow Jones Industrials up 36 points at the close. White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha was asked about testing supply if there is a spike in coronavirus cases in the winter.
The calculations that HHS had done, again, I think these were done before I arrived, suggested that if we got another Omicron-like event, we should have about 900 million tests in a stockpile so we can get it out to the American people, because it would take us 4 to 6 weeks for domestic manufacturing to ramp up again. We're going to have nowhere near that.
Jha blames Congress.
Again, we're going to do everything inside the administration to make sure that we have testing capability that we can ramp up as quickly as possible. But all of this is made just dramatically harder by congressional inaction.
Jha says money was taken from other accounts to make up for what Congress decided not to fund. He says there is enough vaccine for anyone who wants it. I'm Ed Donahue.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 303.
For Civic Media, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. The Wisconsin Court of Appeals has granted a stay order on a ruling by former Republican Attorney General, now Waukesha County Circuit Court Judge Brad Schimmel, that would have stopped a practice known as ballot spoiling. That decision was announced less than 5 weeks before the November midterm elections in a lawsuit brought by a conservative organization attempting to block a practice that allows a voter to have their previously submitted ballot destroyed and allows them to recast their ballot before it is tabulated on Election Day. Over 100,000 absentee ballots have already been returned for the November election, roughly 25% of all absentee ballots requested, according to the Wisconsin Elections Commission. The appeals court granted the temporary stay and has given both parties the lawsuit until noon on Wednesday to submit arguments, after which the appeals court will decide whether or not to take up the case.
Already in place.
You're listening
to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN, 50 AM.
Welcome back to the Devils. Calvin, you're killing us. Welcome back to the Devils Advocates Radio Show. That seems a little better, man. I love the AC/DC, but something it was ricocheting off the cymbals or something. Don, we welcome a fine guest. He is Dan Schaffer from the Recombobulation Area blog. Dan, welcome to the Devil's Advocates, man.
Hey, Dan.
Good afternoon, fellas. Thanks for having me on the show.
You know, I think, Dan, you got to hit mute. How about
Check. 1, 2. Dan, you with us?
I'm here.
No, Dan cannot hit mute. Dan's got to be on.
You know what, Dan? I tell you what, let's take why don't we have you give us a call on the cell phone at 844-967-2789, 844-967-2789. We, of course, want the audience to hear your voice and your thoughts, so we'll bring you on the phone, and those watching visually can see you, and then, I think must have gotten rid of them visually. He's a better looking guy than you, Dom.
Well, we'll wait for Dan from the Recombobulation to give us a call. Some technical issues here. 844-967-2789. Looks like we have Dan. Is he with us? Hello, Dan. You there?
Now?
There we go. There we go, Dan. All right. Welcome back, man.
Oh, thanks. I'm not sure what's going on there. Sorry about any of that. But thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for joining us, sir. Dan, let me ask you. You've been looking at the political landscape very, very closely during this elective cycle. And unfortunately, with the gerrymandered circumstances across the state of Wisconsin, we really don't have a hell of a lot of competitive races. But Dan, where have you been putting your attention? I know you've been, sort of breaking down the individual district races. Dan, where do you see the excitement? Where should we put our attention?
Yeah, so at the Recombobulation Area, I went through the task of previewing all 116 races in the Wisconsin State Legislature that are going to be on the ballot this year. And we're under new maps for the first time in a decade, so I think some people had some hope about that. Maybe bringing some more competitive districts, but since the Republican introduced maps for the ones that ended up being adopted, there's actually going to be fewer competitive districts than ever before. So there are, just a handful of seats in the state Senate and the state Assembly that could make the difference between whether or not the Republicans will gain a supermajority. And I think going through this task and doing this preview really showed where many of the swing areas, where many of the battlegrounds are in the state of Wisconsin.
Dan, real quick, let me interrupt you. Tell people why it would be disastrous for the Republicans to gain a supermajority in the legislative branches.
Well, that would give them the power to override the governor's veto. So if Tony Evers is reelected as the governor, that there is a possibility that the Republicans could get to the 2/3 threshold and give them the opportunity to override the governor's veto. So we've seen how the Republicans under Robin Voss's leadership have acted with just a regular majority. I really don't think the people of Wisconsin would like to see the type of approach that he would be able to take if he were to have a supermajority.
It's a nice way to put it, Dan.
So let's get back to the competitive races now that we hear the stark consequences. How many competitive districts do you think there are mathematically? Let's start with the Wisconsin State Senate. What do you think? 3?
Yeah, so there are 17 seats up in the Wisconsin State Senate this year. Half the Senate is up this year. And there, like you said, there is about 3 competitive districts in the state Senate. We've got the 31st district in western Wisconsin around Eau Claire, the 5th district in the western suburbs of Milwaukee, and the 19th district in the Fox Valley in the Appleton-Neenah area. So those are really the key, the 3 main most competitive districts. There is also the 25th district in the far northwest corner of the state, where the current state senator there is a Democrat, but she is retiring in a district that Trump won by almost 10 points. So that is going to be a difficult one for the Democrats to hold.
And is that, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Bewley's district?
That is Bewley's district, yep.
So she's the retiring Democrat from northwestern Wisconsin. I've also heard ads for Patty Schachner. I know that she had won special election. Is she the one seeking that seat?
She is not. She is not. I believe she is actually running for. I think she is running for Assembly this time. But the seat that is in that corner, it's Kelly Westland is the Democrat running against Romaine Quinn, who was a Assembly representative on the Republican side until quite recently. So that is a district that's going to be difficult for Democrats to hold. So you have an opportunity. So if the Republicans do pick up that one seat, they would be at the 2/3 threshold in the state Senate. So that wouldn't matter quite as much as having both both chambers as a supermajority, but it is, we've seen the state Senate do all sorts of things with not confirming the governor's appointees and things like that. So a supermajority would only embolden those anti-democratic tendencies that we've seen there.
Now, Dan, let's talk about the 5th in suburban Milwaukee, actually out towards Waukesha, Brookfield, I believe. I believe that was Dominic's day drinking buddy Dale Coenga's seat. And Coenga, apparently due to the redistricting, felt like he was disadvantaged, and then they readopted the Republican maps. And anyways, he's not running for re-election. Open seat. This was the Palzowitz-Katzenmeier primary, if I remember, on the Democratic side. Katzenmeier came through. Who's her Republican opponent? And do we have any polling on these sort of small, big in importance, but small in district sort of races, Dan?
Yeah, I think the Republican there is Rob Hutton. He actually lost in his re-election bid in the state assembly in 2020 when Sarah Rodriguez flipped the 13th district in the assembly. But the 5th district and really the Milwaukee suburbs in general are the perfect example of how gerrymandering has really moved the goalposts in Republicans' advantage. The 5th district was shaping up to be the best opportunity for Democrats to flip a seat this election cycle. Like you mentioned, Dale Coenga is the current state senator there. So that was a 50-50 seat under old maps. But Republicans, they couldn't have a competitive seat in the Milwaukee suburbs. So they shifted that from, it's about a 50-50 seat to now a seat that has an 8% Republican lean. They drew the map so that it includes much more of Waukesha County as opposed to the cities of Wauwatosa and West Allis, where it is currently located. So Republicans have made themselves the favorites in this race. And like you said, Jessica Katzenmeier is the Democrat who won a competitive primary there. And, I think this is a part of the state that we've seen shift to the left pretty significantly in recent years. So we'll have to see if that shift continues as it has become a more difficult seat for Democrats to win under new maps.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That is Dan Schaffer from the Recombobulation Area blog joining us on the phone. Dan, always a pleasure. Thank you. I want to get your sense of the debate performance by Mandela Barnes against Ron Johnson. What were your takeaways? How do you think the candidates did, Dan?
Yeah, so I wrote a piece about this at Heartland Signal. I think it was a really interesting debate. I think we've had so many attack ads throughout this cycle. I think it's maybe the second most expensive Senate race in the country. And I think it really gave an opportunity for these candidates to speak directly to voters and speak to the issues that matter. And I think Barnes did well in the debate, and I think Ron Johnson did especially poorly. I think you've seen a number of times when Johnson steps outside of his comfortable talk radio conservative media bubble that he has trouble with questions from mainstream journalists, and I think you saw that on display in the debate on Friday.
Well, and I'm curious to know how we're going to see Michaels perform in the gubernatorial debate against Governor Evers. That goes off on
so well in the primary debates
on Thursday. And Dan, it seems like there's this trend with these hard rights. We're only going to get one debate for Wisconsin, the gubernatorial race here in Wisconsin. We should certainly have more. There should be more of an opportunity for the voters to see these candidates for who they are, and perhaps one time isn't enough, my opinion. But at least they're showing up once. I mean, Mastriano, to my understanding, not debating. Also here in Wisconsin, Paff versus Van Orden. He is not. Van Orden has not debated, will not debate. Dan, what do you contribute to the seemingly trend of these hard right wingers not wanting to or debating very little these days?
Yeah, it's been interesting in the days since the first debate that Ron Johnson first Senate debate that Ron Johnson has basically been making the rounds, blaming the media for the debate. And there's a sure sign as any that you lost the debate that you're blaming the media in the days since, instead of perhaps highlighting some of your answers or what have you. But it's a troubling trend, I think, that you've identified there with Republicans refusing to just have an honest conversation on the issues. We see that in Wisconsin all the time with these gavel in, gavel outs that we see in the state legislature, the constant refusal to take up any bills that are introduced by Democrats. Only less than 2% of them even got a public hearing in the last legislative session. So more and more of these Republicans are shutting out an honest conversation, an honest debate. I think it's really discouraging and it's yet another difficult trend that's, for our democracy, just the unwillingness of one party to just have the conversation.
Well, Dan, the big lie is the most engaging part of the Republican platform because they don't have a platform of governance per se. All they really have is the big lie. And Republican voters, the vast majority of them, they feel like it was rigged. I mean, how could our guy lose? Well, the problem, Dan, as I see it, is that many of these ongoing candidates, guys like Michaels, guys like Ron Johnson, they aren't going to come out and clearly say that they'll accept the outcome of the next election or endorse the outcome of the 2024 election. Dan, I'm getting a little concerned about democracy. Small d, sir.
It's a very concerning time for democracy, and I think we've seen a very acute backsliding of that small d democracy in the state of Wisconsin. The gerrymandered maps that we discussed, I think, are a big piece of that. The unwillingness to have the conversation and this ongoing commitment, like you said, to the big lie, to the lie of a stolen election. Ron Johnson was completely unable to answer any questions about his involvement in the plot to overturn the election on January 6th. And, I think it's going to be interesting later this week. The January 6th Select Committee has its final hearing on Thursday afternoon, and the debate between Johnson and Barnes happens that evening. It's going to be an interesting opportunity for Barnes to really highlight Johnson's role there. And because I think, we saw in some recent polling, there was a CBS poll over the weekend that showed that independents who were more aware of Johnson's role here and his views, being perhaps the chief election denier in the U.S. Senate, 8 in 10 independents who knew about that were siding with Barnes. So I think this is an issue that Democrats can really go in on.
Dan, Michael Moore thinks it's going to be a blue tsunami because people are tired of attacks on democracy. Then a little dose of Dobbs. Dan, we got 30 seconds. Blue wave or red wave or, another purple slog.
I think it's going to be a complicated year. I think the history says when you have a Democratic president, the Republicans pick up seats. But I think this is not your typical midterm election year.
Dan Schaffer from the Recombobulation Area blog. Dan, thanks for joining us here on the Devil's Advocates. Don't be a stranger, man. Election coming up 1 month from today. More Devils. We'll be right back.
Thanks, Dan.
Look through your children's eyes, and you will discover the true magic of a forest.
Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can. But it's just as important to take time for yourself. AARP can help. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Hey, Joe.
What do you got for us today?
In reference to Lindsey Graham, I was amazed at his comments where he said if Trump is indicted, there will be riots in the streets. Lindsey Graham was a JAG officer, and in order to be a JAG officer, you have to pass the bar. Was a JAG
I'm
officer.
sorry, you said JAG-off officer? I didn't quite understand that.
Yeah, to see a lawyer, head for the rat hole instead of acting like a person with a backbone. Wow, what a profile in courage, huh?
Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m.
You've waited 12 years for this, but you just didn't know what the flavor was going to be. Nothing has tasted quite right up until now. Sometimes it tasted dumb, crazy, or even seditious, but now it tastes just right. Introducing Mandela Mash, a legit lager. This beer won't embarrass you in public. It comes in an aluminum can, not a tinfoil hat, and it was made in America, not Russia. With a clean finish, the taste doesn't lie. Mandela Mash, the only sane choice for U.S. Senate. Available only in Wisconsin. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to find where you can buy this fresh new flavor of American democracy.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines open for your take at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, thank you to our most recent guest, Dan Schaffer from the Recombobulation Area blog. If you don't know how to spell it, look it up because, it's a lot of letters.
I'll just find him on Twitter at Dan Schaffer.
I would point out Dan has been making the civic media rounds.
I did not know that.
He was on the Dueling Tangents on October 4th. The Chad Holmes Show, one of our fine products up at Bull Falls Radio in Warsaw there. He was there on October 5th.
What?
And he was with Kristen Bryan, as goes Wisconsin, October 6th.
Oh, man. Did we talk about cheating on us, Dan?
We're like sloppy fourths.
Well, we always appreciate it. Glad we could introduce Dan to our audience. Check him out. He's a smart, insightful guy, and we appreciate him coming around.
And when you do the homework, everyone wants to cheat over your shoulder, apparently. Thanks, Dan. Next time, maybe we'll invite him in studio. Dom, what's next for us, big fella?
Well, we didn't quite get to it with Dan, but I want to bring this up. Your old buddy, Brad Schimmel. Remember the former attorney general from the great state of Wisconsin?
The guy that was completely unqualified for the job.
Yes.
And didn't know his own website address when he rolled out his candidate. And the very same candidate that Vicky McKenna, righty-whitey talk show host down the dial, said of Brad Schimmel when he first appeared on her show, I'm sure more candidates will jump in the race, better qualified candidates, just better candidates. But they never did they, Dom?
No, they didn't. And we had Brad Schimmel. But good news is he got appointed to be a judge by Scott Walker. And
what a swell parting gift.
You know what I'm saying? And I always wonder, because I didn't hear a whole lot about what happened to Schimmel after he got appointed judge. Well, here's an update for you folks from the AP as reported at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. A Wisconsin appeals court on Monday put a hold on a lower court's ruling from last week prohibiting voters from canceling their original absentee ballots and casting a new one, blocking at least temporarily the order sought by a conservative group founded by prominent Republicans. The appeals court granted the Wisconsin Election Commission's request for a temporary stay while the court decided whether to hear an appeal on the practice known as ballot spoiling. The appeals court gave both sides until noon Wednesday, that's tomorrow, to submit their arguments. The legal fight comes as Wisconsin voters are returning absentee ballots for the November 8th election. To date, just short of 110,000 absentee ballots have been returned, just over 1/4 of the nearly 401,000 that were requested, according to the Elections Commission. Evers and Johnson are both on the ballot in tight races. The order from the appeals court came as the Elections Commission was in closed session of an emergency meeting Monday, called in part to react to Schimmel's court ruling. The commission adjourned without taking action. The order from, here we go, Waukesha County Circuit Judge Brad Schimmel. God, I hope I never, ever, ever have to go in that guy's courtroom. A former Wisconsin Republican Attorney General required the Elections Commission to inform municipal clerks and local election officials by 7 p.m. Monday that its guidance on ballot spoiling issued on August 1st had been withdrawn. Schimmel also forbid the commission from issuing any future guidance related to ballot spoiling that is not allowed under law. And here's something I did not know from the reporting. Thank you, AP. Restoring integrity and trust in elections, that's RITE, right, filed the lawsuit last month. This group was created in July by former U.S. Attorney General William Barr, longtime Republican strategist Karl Rove, GOP donor Steve Wynn, and others. It has also filed election-related lawsuits in the battleground states of Arizona and Pennsylvania.
Do you remember when Brad Schimmel was the Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin and he got to make a ruling on water usage? And he effectively said the state of Wisconsin, when deciding whether or not to give out high-capacity well grants,
permits, right? Yeah.
Permits, you couldn't consider how much water was being taken out of the aquifer. You could not consider that.
Yes, correct.
Like, is the guy not turned on the TV? You know what
It's
I mean?
all kind of related, man.
There are many waterways that are, being deplenished of their water, let's just say. And he, when he was the Attorney General in his infinite wisdom, wrote this statement that apparently was binding in some way, shape, or form on the DNR in the state of Wisconsin. Cumulative wells. Couldn't ask how much water was coming out.
Well, of course, because it's all about, big factory farms, and the Republicans are down for letting that happen. Of course, it's asinine because lots of straws into the aquifer are going to have an overall impact. It's not just, on your property. The aquifer doesn't just go under your property. It's like the air above you. I mean, it was a ridiculous ruling. It's more asinine rulings from a guy who's not qualified, number one, was not qualified to be the Attorney General, is certainly not qualified to be a judge. And I was wondering, what would it take? Where is it? Well, here you go. You got it. You got to stand up. I mean, absentee ballot spoiling. So if you cast, you want to change your mind, or if somebody drops out, something happens. The Republicans don't want you to be able to do that. They don't want you to do that. And
they're not down for democracy.
No, I mean, it's just constant drip, resistance against flowing flowing democracy. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you be down for allowing the citizens to have their actual ballots be cast, the ones that they want? They made a mistake. Somebody died. Someone dropped out. Whatever the case may be.
I can tell you why.
Why?
Here's why. Because Republicans vote on election day, like Donald Trump told them to. So they don't ever spoil their ballots because...
statistically speaking, correct, yes.
Well... they used to vote early. They used to be a big Republican thing. Republicans used to establish leads in most elections because they've got a lot of older voters in their electorate. But suddenly that's all changed. And of course, Republicans think that if theirs only come out on election day, well, anyone that would quote unquote spoil their ballot, well, they got to be a libtard.
Well, at least most likely to be a libtard. And if it's 50% plus one possibility of them being a libtard, the Republicans, they're down. Other Republican voters, the GOP, the MAGAs, they are down with martyring your vote and your ability to change your mind.
I never really much cared for that Brad Schimmel. That's about the only thing I ever agreed with your girl, Vicky McKenna, on. Unqualified. Really, there had to be a better candidate somewhere, anywhere. I'm not so sure about this Eric Toney character either. Josh Kaul, the incumbent Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin. Now, I was a huge fan of Josh's mom, Peg Lautenschlager. I mean, she had her bad moment that one late night, but other than that, I'm a big fan of Peg Lautenschlager, now deceased. But Josh Kaul's been a good Attorney General. He'd have been a great Attorney General if he'd sought to prosecute the false Trump electors, Tom. Because that's fraud under anyone's definition. I did ask him about that at the DPW. Now, he pointed towards the federal investigation still going on. And of course, he also pointed towards the trial of the devil's advocates and the subpoenas issued by our fair counsel for all of the participating false Trump electors. Hope they show up, Tom, October 17th.
What were they doing in that building, and how did they get treated versus how we got treated?
Well, a procedural coup d'etat. They were attempting to undertake the Happier Happy Hour. It's next. Stick around.
Life can seem very confusing, but there are three things I know for sure. The elections this fall are critical for us and our future. Each of us must vote and bring our families and friends to the polls with us. The easiest and safest way to cast our ballot is to vote early, from October 25th to November 5th. There are 14 early voting sites, including Midtown Shopping Center and almost all libraries. For a full list, go to city.milwaukee.gov/early voting. That's city.milwaukee.gov/early voting. Our community's votes are the critical differences in who runs the state and the nation. Get your souls to the polls. Your vote is your power to build a better future. If you need a ride, call 414-383-1821. That's 414-383-1821. You gotta vote.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W226DR Waukesha, always streaming at WAUK Radio.
My responsibility to acknowledge and to apologize to the family of Hayman Lee and Adnan Saeed.
Mosby said charges have been dropped in the 1999 killing of Hayman Lee. The case was chronicled by the podcast Serial. Mosby says she told Lee's family earlier in the day.
My office received notice of these results on Friday.
I got an email, dude.
This morning, I personally reached out to the victim's attorney to inform Ms. Lee's family of the DNA findings and my decision to dismiss the case.
Syed spent 23 years in prison. The Biden administration says it is willing to reevaluate U.S. relations with Saudi Arabia following Saudi oil production cuts that helped Russia. Sagar Meghani has this.
Senate Foreign Relations Chair Bob Menendez wants to cut off all arms sales and security cooperation with the kingdom beyond what's needed to protect Americans. He's among a growing number of Democrats who are accusing the Saudis of skirting a decades-long bargain that's provided them U.S. security in exchange for a reliable oil flow. Here at the White House,
the president believes that it's time to take another look at this relationship.
National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says the president's willing to discuss it with Menendez and others, but stops short of predicting what might happen.
In Ukraine, forensic workers pulled several bodies from a mass grave in a city in Ukraine's Donetsk region, once in the hands of Russian occupiers. The Russian military fired another swarm of missiles at Ukraine's cities. White House advisor John Kirby was asked about Russian President Vladimir Putin's nuclear intentions.
We've seen no indication that the Russian apparatus is moving anything to prepare for that.
This is AP News.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Muskego to Pewaukee, always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
It's your only opportunity to hear from the candidates together. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers and Republican challenger Tim Michels meet for one general election debate this Friday, October 14th at 7 p.m. You can hear it live on this local civic media radio station. Learn where they stand on policies and issues important to you and your family. Then vote on November 8th. The only gubernatorial debate live Friday, October 14th at 7 p.m. on your local civic media radio station and streaming on the Civic Media app.
Greatest radio show ever could be your greatest advertising investment ever. Partner with the Devil's Advocates and activate our loyal, educated, and engaged audience today. In-show interviews and sponsored special events considered across Wisconsin. Affordable digital and terrestrial ads available in Chicago and Minneapolis and directly on the Devil Radio app. Make a deal with the Devils and get the Devils Advocates bumped to your bottom line. Call or text 844-967-2789 today.
Work, the kids' practices, household errands, seems like every hour's rush hour at our house. But no matter how busy things get, we still make balanced nutrition a priority with help from Country Hearth Natural Breads. Whole grains and other natural ingredients are carefully blended and baked into delicious, nutritious breads like Dakota-style 12-grain, multi-grain, and 100% whole wheat. There's a Country Hearth favorite for everyone in the family. Country Hearth Breads, baking our best for you.
The Shaw 101 FM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
But anyways, I got to hop back on here. Thanks for your help.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matner with your headlines. Poll watcher recruitment efforts have increased on both sides. This is worrying to some local clerks concerned about intimidating behavior from partisan observers. Voter intimidation and threatening election workers are against the law, but the Wisconsin Elections Commission decided last month to review existing rules for election observers. Because this will take more than a year, Commission Chair Don Mills offered a proposal giving clerks clarity on the existing law now. This ended in a deadlock vote between Democrats and Republicans, Democrats stating the added guidance creates more confusion than clarity. Current state law says poll watchers can't be closer than 3 feet, not farther than 8 feet. Mills' proposal stated they would be within 3 feet. Even after he changed the wording, Democrats wouldn't agree, calling the proposal a major rewrite of the law not consistent with the statutes already in place. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Oh, you're doing a great job, man.
Live programming for WAUK Radio 540 AM and 101 FM is produced right in the Shaw in beautiful downtown Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Tuesday Happier Happy Hour. And Tom, I got a surprise.
What?
It's Batman. Matt Rothschild, the executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. He's here with me in the world headquarters, Madison Studios. And I think Batman is the only guy more excited about the January 6 hearings than we are, Dom. Hey, man, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I snuck in, no security at the front desk.
It's easy to get in and out, Matt. It's not like the Hotel California.
You know, we actually have security locks on the front. Don't tell people it's easy to get in here now. Somebody just left the door open. The riffraff came in. Matt Rothschild, you're doing a party at Hawks, one of our favorite fighter neighborhood bars on State Street. And the occasion's the January 6th. And you guys are all going down there for a little watch party.
Yeah, January 6th watch party. Every listener to this great radio program is invited to come down to Hawks noon this Thursday, 325 State Street, for a watch party on this last final hearing of the January 6th committee. We're going to be demanding accountability.
Oh, I thought you were going to demand drink specials.
No, they're going to have to beg me to pay. No. Accountability for all those Wisconsin accomplices in this criminal conspiracy, in this seditious conspiracy, in this coup attempt. Right on down from Ron Johnson at the top to Bob Spindell, one of the false electors. All 10 of those false electors need to be investigated. I'm wanting Josh Call to investigate all of them, including Ron Johnson, including the 10 false electors, including the 15 Republican legislators who wrote a letter to Vice President Pence on January 5th of all days, telling the vice president not to honor the slate of electors from Wisconsin. That's outrageous. That's a crime in my book, and they need to be investigated for committing it.
Batman, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson had the debate the other night with Mandela Barnes, and I was hopeful our buddy Mandela would ask him, sir, have you considered getting good effing criminal defense counsel? I mean, Ron Johnson may have criminal exposure here, and we don't know for surezies, but to say or imply, well, why would anyone subpoena me? Why would anyone want to know? Well, you've admitted publicly to, at minimum, being a fact witness, and the president's lawyer, and I'm curious which one, is it Rudy? Is it Rudy? Reached out to Ron, and here's my conspiracy theory. Just going to lay it out for you, Batman. Remember, Trump wanted desperately to go to the Capitol, right? From the ellipse. He gave the speech. He said, well, march down. We'll see you there. Well, they wouldn't let him. In fact, we've heard details in differing books, try to choke out a Secret Service guy for not taking the limo down. Well, did Trump want to deliver his own false, fraudulent Trump electors? And when they wouldn't let him personally deliver them, did he have a problem? He needed a bag man, and he had one of the lawyers, probably Rudy, in my speculation, call willing accomplice Ron Johnson. But whether it was a second, a minute, or, the now admitted hour-ish time frame, I mean, Ron Johnson's a minimum at minimum, and a witness at minimum, and, a criminal at worst.
He was involved in this effort to overturn an election. There's got to be some accountability for that. We're going to be demanding accountability for it at Hawks on Thursday at noon. It's a public watch party. Come on down if you're here in Madison.
They do have food at Hawks at the one on State Street, so you could eat and party and watch the, democracy in real time.
I'm having lunch there for sure.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got a sneaky Pete guest. He is Batman from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Your group also out there encouraging people to get out and vote. It's 4 weeks from today,
4 weeks from today. Everybody should go out and vote. Everyone should register to vote. You can go to myvote.wi.gov to see if you're registered, to see what you need to get registered. If you're not, the deadline for registering by mail or by email is October 19th. You can always go to your clerk's office and register there after that date. And you can register on November 8th, too, on Election Day here in Wisconsin still, until they change the law, which they may do if Republicans gain total control. But this November 8th, you can do it in person. Make sure you have the proper documentation for it. For those who are voting absentee, by the way, you got to make sure that the witness to your ballot, the witness to your vote, your friend or your spouse, is filling out that back of the envelope correctly. Make sure that they're filling out the whole address there, every line, so that some Republican objector isn't going to throw away your ballot that you voted correctly just because your witness may not have put down the street address. Or
don't have
like
Don
that.
be your witness, in other words.
Hey, Matt, I want to throw this out there as we're talking about Ron Johnson. Now, remember how the story went. He initially told Vicki McKenna that the question that came to him from the office of U.S. Rep. Mike Kelly, a Republican from Pennsylvania, but a Kelly spokesperson told the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel that Ron Johnson's comments were patently false and that Kelly had not spoken to Johnson for the better part of a decade, has no knowledge of the claims that Mr. Johnson is making related to the 2020 election. This is from Madison.com. Now, that specific document, Matt, signed by 10 Republicans who convened in the state capitol on December 14th of 2020, was filled out on the same day the Democratic slate of Wisconsin electors met in the same building to deliver the state's 10 electoral votes to President-elect Joe Biden. The meeting of Republicans occurred after the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled that Biden won the election. Here's where the juice is. We need to get a document from the Wisconsin electors to you for the VP immediately. Former Dane County Circuit Court Judge Jim Troupis told Johnson at 11:36 a.m. on January 6th of 2021, according to text provided to conservative media outlets, Just the News. Is there a staff person I can talk to immediately? Thanks, Jim T. So that attorney was Jim Troupis, Crudy.
You know who's appearing on the Vicki McKenna show a little bit earlier this afternoon? Why? Attorney Judge Jim Troupis.
I mean, Troupis needs to be investigated by Josh Call, too. I mean, are we going to have some accountability for this tremendous fraud against the citizens of Wisconsin who voted to elect Joe Biden as president? to get our electoral college votes to Joe Biden. These guys were trying to subvert that process by fraudulently anointing themselves as the electors from the state of Wisconsin.
And subverting the process is a really nice way to say, hey, the majority of voters, we don't want to abide by your vote. We just want to throw your vote out, and we want our guy to win. We want our candidate to win. I mean, it is beyond I cannot understand it, Matt. And I like call, man, but don't put this on the feds. I mean, what if they decide not to follow through, man? I mean, you could do parallel investigations. I mean, this can be done. Now, I understand that, maybe Call thinks he's got other things to do, but if democracy is truly on the ballot, Matt, don't you think Josh Call should be making some efforts to make sure that democracy still exists? And those that would seek to subvert it, if they're not going to be punished by the feds, then certainly the state of Wisconsin should come down like a hammer.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be calling for this Thursday at Hawks Bar and Grill, 325 State Street from noon to 2. We're going to be telling anybody who comes in there who's there for the watch party to send an email to Josh Call and tell him to do his duty and investigate these false electors, investigate Ron Johnson, investigate Jim Troupas, investigate any Wisconsinite who was involved in this coup attempt. And also, if Josh Call doesn't want to do it, Ishozan can do it. Our DA here in Dane County, where the crimes were committed, he could do it too. Someone's got to hold these folks accountable, and it's time for our law enforcement officers to do that.
And if it is not them, it may have to be the devil's advocate.
It may have to be. I kind of feel like I'm being harmed if they're trying to subvert my vote. Of course I'm harmed by that.
We have trial on October 17th, and the crime, air quotes, civil forfeiture crime we've been accused of is entering the locked Wisconsin state capitol during a pandemic circumstance. And we were there. And of course, I brought a deviltry, my First Amendment right to do so. I spent hours decorating that bad boy.
It was a fine effort, Michael.
But the Republicans were doing sort of a COVID Christmas carol. They invited us all to go and attend, and we took them up on it. But unbeknownst to us, as we were, fighting off the cop and who was it? Tim Ramjam,
yep.
Tried to get us arrested on the spot. And, I talked my way out of it, but we got mailed citations. But unbeknownst to us, Matt, all of the false Trump electors were in the building the very same week as us.
And how did they get in? They got in because Scott Fitzgerald let them in.
Well, we would like to know that, and we would like them to testify to how they entered the building and why they're treated disparately different under law, kind of like Trump always wanted to be. So we've subpoenaed all the false Trump electors, and hopefully we will have answers at trial on October 17th. Exclusive coverage right here on the Devil's Advocates radio show. We may be the only ones that care, but we care a lot.
More power to you. And Rampton was one of the 15 electors who signed that letter to Vice President Pence on January 5th, telling the Vice President not to honor our slate. So, there's got to be, I'm with you, Dom, there's just got to be accountability. I mean, I am furious that they tried to commit this fraud against me. And there are 1,360,000 Wisconsinites whose ballots they were trying to fraudulently throw into the garbage can.
Well, Dom's boy, Sherry Sortwell, Assembly Rep Republican, he was also amongst the Christmas carolers and the 15 Wisconsin Republicans that sought to have Mike Pence, set aside the outcome of the election and just do what he wanted. Maybe make it their choice. You see, this is the newest before the U.S. Supreme Court, whether the court should decide these sort of ballot issues or whether it should be, let's say, state legislatures, like the one controlled almost by a 2/3 gerrymandered advantage by Republicans here in the state of Wisconsin. They'd be really fair, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're trying to take our basic freedom to vote away, or just to cancel our votes. And we can't let them get away with that.
Tell you what, Batman, stick around. I didn't know you were coming, but since you're here, we're going to make the most of it.
Use me.
Oh, we're going to use you up. More Devil's Advocates. On the other side, our good friend. He's Batman. He's Matt Rothschild. He is the executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. And if nothing else, I want to talk to you about the obscene campaign spending happening all around us. I mean, there's like $250 million flowing through the state of Wisconsin right now. Whew. And even civic media is starting to get a few of those super PAC crumbs.
I heard about that.
Matt Rothschild, our fine guest. Come back, more Devils.
So Sage's lawyers seeing
eyes in two different directions.
Yes.
On the other hand, the average human can't. So unless you're a chameleon, there's absolutely no way you can focus on texting and driving at the same time. So don't do it, unless you're a chameleon.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Nothing about the ads that were slanderous or libel. They were supported by specific citation. I would say facts are facts. I'm paying to put fact-based messages.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the other thing is if they're saying something that's false,
I didn't find them to be, I mean, we've all heard, but we've accepted super PAC ads. Sage, in and of himself, doesn't have
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
We mentioned, inflation is going to be an issue. Let me ask you this. What would you like to see Donald Trump do if you were here? What did you suggest Biden do to address the inflationary pressures we're facing right now?
Well, I can't tell you that because that would be something you could counter and defeat Trump with, or the Republican Party. So tell you.
You think Trump's taking strategy from you on talk radio?
I mean, you're no Kid Rock, Lou.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
No, I know the candidate.
Birthday parties. Getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed.
I'm not under a bus, and after the ads, you can say I told you.
Get the latest info about COVID-19 vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Make sure you check us out on the social medias, on Facebook at the Devil's Advocates Radio, on Twitter at Devil Radio, and go to the civicmedia.us website if you want to check out all the updated and new podcasts and interviews.
Dominic, I've got a fine guest, our good friend, Matt Rothschild. He's Batman. He is the vigilante of good governance. He is from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, executive director thereof. And Matt, part of your role is sort of be the watchdog of political spend. Now, there's a lot of that going on right now. I bet you've been staying busy, fella. But when we talk about political spend, there's the candidate money, as you and I were talking about during the break. And we here at Civic Media would be more than willing, as we're FCC regulated, on candidate money to offer them the lowest unit rate available, because they say we must, and to make a certain amount of airtime available to any qualified candidate. But when you start talking about things like super PACs that are out there crapping on the Democrats, I'm less convinced, and we'll get clarity from legal counsel, but I'm less convinced that we've got to carry that water, Matt. But lots of people are. There are lots of political campaign ads all across this state.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The Communications Act of 1935 requires radio broadcasters and TV broadcasters to run ads by the candidates themselves. If the candidates have...
So if Ron Johnson wants to buy ads, I got to sell them.
Yeah, he can come back on. He's been away too long.
No, just right amount of time.
The prodigal Ron does not need to come home. But
if
the NRSC, let's say the National Republican Senate Committee, that's Mitch McConnell's outfit,
or Republican Governors Association, which is spending a ton of money on Michaels right now, if they come knocking on your door,
they've already knocked.
All right, that's the question, though. And the question would, one thing you'd have to figure out is what yardstick are you using, other than I don't like these guys, to refuse their ads. And maybe I don't like these guys is enough, but you'd have to ask the lawyers, and I don't even play one.
Well, we don't like those guys. And we're going to find out if we can legally discriminate against them, but we'll find out. We'll clarify the point before we accept or deny.
Well, and that's the thing. And of course, we need to rely on qualified legal counsel to make those calls. But generally speaking, Matt, there's an organization out there. We're not, if you're not under the umbrella of the FCC to, follow the law from 1935, if these groups, they're supporting, these semi-fascist types. And I don't want to hear ads, coming back from commercial to hear something that the insurrectionist bastards want to share with people.
Dom keeps asking me if we're going to accept money from Nazis.
Yeah,
no, and people did accept money from Nazis, Matt, and that was bad.
And as a listener, and I listen every day, I don't want to hear that ad on here either. And so I hear where you're coming from. To me, it's just a question of, number one, can you legally refuse it? And number two, what's your consistency? What's your yardstick?
Well, call me a hypocrite if you must. But, Matt, I have been listening, and I'm a single issue voter, man. I'm all in it for the political talk platforms. But I've been driving the state of Wisconsin. I've miled up my truck this summer, listening and out there acquiring and driving for real estate and all different reasons, but mostly related to radio. And right-wing talk radio is filthy with political ads. But so is every country station, every rock and roll station, the Packers games, the Badgers games. And all those ads, Matt, near as I can tell, are coming from the right. Is that's been being tracked? Because when it's big numbers, when it's millions and they're spending it on TV, it's easy to track. But when, the NRSC calls us and says, I want to drop 500 on that station and 500 on that station and 500 on that station, those numbers are a lot harder to quantify in real time. And I don't know if the Democrats know it, but cumulatively, they're getting their asses handed to them by the right expenditures on radio.
Well, I think Mandela Barnes knows it. I mean, those ads are the ones that took his numbers way down. I mean, so if it's an independent expenditure ad, if the advertiser is telling you vote for or vote against a specific candidate, we will know. They've got to register that amount with the state of Wisconsin. And at the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, we track that. In fact, we just posted something about outside money in the governor's race. I mean, these outside groups are beating up Evers more than 3-1 in the money chase. And
most expensive gubernatorial race in the nation, and my understanding earlier, at least in the race, most expensive U.S. Senate race in the nation.
It's certainly one of them. I mean, and Evers himself has been able to raise just about as much money as Michaels this year anyway, but these outside groups are pummeling them. And that says nothing about the dark money groups, which are much harder to track because they don't use those magic words, vote for or vote against. They can just say, call Governor Evers and tell him to stop paying such and such. And then they can, which is saying don't vote for Evers. But because of that ridiculous interpretation by the U.S. Supreme Court, they don't have to disclose their donors. They can throw mud at your screens and we'll never know who's paying for the mud.
No, we know, Matt. Matt Rothschild, Executive Director, Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, just for a couple more minutes. Matt, the debate, we have one more debate coming up on Thursday between Barnes and Johnson. We only get one crack at it between Evers and Michaels. And we see these hardcore right-wingers that are just totally avoiding the debates whatsoever. Here in the state of Wisconsin, Brad Pfaff, the Democrat, can't get on stage with Van Orden. He doesn't want to come around. And even nationally, Mastriano running for office, also hiding and not wanting to debate. Matt, how important is it for these candidates to get out? And what does it tell you that these Republicans, these megas, are seemingly hiding more and more often?
Well, they're chicken. And it's a disgusting slap in the face of the voting public that they're not going to come out behind their, out of their basement and or out of their little video recording studio where they're recording their ads and actually go toe-to-toe with their opponent and tell the people who are going to vote in their area, what they stand for and whether they can represent and whether they can speak and whether they have an articulate vision. And if they're not doing that, they don't deserve your vote.
Well said. Matt Rothschild from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Matt, if people want to support your organization, how can they do so?
Oh, bless your heart. Just go to WISDC for Democracy Campaign, wisdc.org.
That's not dark money. That's good money.
That's good money, and we will disclose it.
They're the vigilantes of good governance, the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Our good friend, Batman Matt Rothschild, Thanks for coming around, announced or otherwise. Always a fine guest. More Devil's Advocates. We'll come back. We'll open up the phone lines for you. 844-967-2789.
Thanks, Matt.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
Or forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that in the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if that wasn't scary enough, now he's saying Social Security shouldn't even be guaranteed. And if politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Los Angeles City Council takes a leave of absence but doesn't resign her seat following a leaked recording of racist remarks during a meeting last year. AP's Julie Walker has this.
Audio first posted on Reddit captures former LA City Council President Nuri Martinez discussing redistricting with other Latino leaders when she speaks of the black son of white City Council member Mike Bonin.
The kid is bouncing off the effing walls on the floor, practically tipping it over. There's nothing you can do to control him.
Which translates to, he looks like a monkey. Bonin called for Martinez and others to resign the council in an emotional Tuesday meeting.
My son? Man, that makes my soul bleed, and it makes my temper burn, and I know I'm not alone.
Martinez apologized, has taken a leave of absence, but remains on the council. I'm Julie Walker.
I'm Tim McGuire.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30.
I'm Pat Kreitlow, the founding editor of Up North News. We know you're looking to stay informed on the issues, and Up North News helps you stay informed on the day's headlines and the best parts about living in Wisconsin. We report the day's top stories and cut through the both sidesism that makes a lot of news products so vague. We're a newsroom that's not afraid to stand for something and call things as they are, not what a consultant would want us to say so that no one is unhappy. Plus, we share stories about Wisconsin people, places, food, events, and more. We love living here. That's why it's worth fighting for. But to get our democracy functional again, news has to be something that helps a voter feel informed, not overwhelmed. Along with my daily headlines and commentary here on the radio, you can find our stories on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search for Up North News WI. Don't forget the WI. And sign up for our daily newsletter at upnorthnewswi.com. Up North News is unabashedly Wisconsin news. WI.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a traveling Tuesday for yours truly, Dom. Ran all the way up to like Minneapolis area and back. And, you know, we brought back some fine guests like Dan Schaffer from the Recombobulation Area blog, and unexpectedly, Batman. But I knew he was out there, and I knew Batman was very excited about the January 6th coverage and the fact that people are going to collect and watch Democracy on the boob tube, Dom, and listen on the Civic Media app, I suspect. But noon at Hawks Bar on Thursday, when we go live, they'll be eating victuals and, maybe having a couple of cold ones, a little day drinking going on in conjunction with the January 6th, Democracy and cold beer on a Thursday afternoon. Does it get any better?
It sounds about perfect.
Dom, let's turn our attention to the Washington Post and the president, Joe Biden, and the Jennifer Rubin. I guess she's not the Jennifer Rubin, although she's the only one I know. Jennifer Rubin, columnist opinion, offers a 3-part closing argument for the midterms on behalf of Joe Biden.
Are we there already? Is it time for the closing arguments with 28 days left?
Well, it's 4 weeks till the election. And if you need to continuously repeat your message, right? Tell them. And then tell them what you told them, Joe. And then tell them again. Well, that takes time. That repetitious message takes time. So if you don't, start looking at the beginning of the end, if you don't start making your closing statements, Dom, well, the election could come and go and you never really get to make a final great impression. So anyways, here's what Rubin thinks. President Biden has been an effective messenger for Democrats, contrary to the chin-stroking pundits and Republican flacks who warned he might be a weight around the necks of the party's candidates. His approval rating, particularly among Democrats, continues to improve. Moreover, whether warning that Republicans pose a threat to democracy, I like that, dark Joe Biden, dark Brandon Joe Biden, right? Or that Democrats have made historic investments in infrastructure and green energy, Biden has the capacity to drive the news cycle. And he certainly has a knack at turning the midterm elections into a referendum on former President Donald Trump. If this is about Trump, the Republicans will lose. A little bit more from Rubin. With Election Day 4 weeks away and early voting well underway, Dom, the president can make critical 3-point closing arguments to voters, according to Jennifer Rubin. Dom, what's the lead?
Number 1 from Rubin, the cons of GOP control. You can take that a couple of ways, I'm sure. Biden can spell out the chaos that awaits if Republicans win even one House of Congress or take key jobs responsible for running our elections. A GOP House can shut down the government, thereby suspending aid, for example, to Ukraine or funding for infrastructure or drug cost plans. They could force a default on the debt, impeach Biden, as they have threatened to do, or cabinet officials, and inevitably engage in mind-numbing, hyperbolic investigation. Worst of all, they can wreak havoc in counting the electoral votes in 2024. The Electoral Count Act reform has yet to pass, and even the best constructed changes will not prevent attempted coups. Congress can refuse to meet. Election-denying governors can refuse to certify electors, and secretaries of state can engage in conspiracy-driven voting subversion. Biden should not be shy in saying that our next presidential election might make 2020 look like a seamless transfer of power. This is not fear-mongering, writes Rubin. It is a reminder of what Republicans plan to do. And the country needs a reminder because the mainstream media remain intent on treating Republicans like a normal, responsible party, that we are dealing with a party that appears committed to doing substantial harm. A party that routinely threatens violence and denies election outcomes cannot be trusted with power.
I concur. Number 2, Dom, I'll go next. And maybe you can, back cleanup as well. Essence of democracy. Biden can remind voters that the essence of democracy is respect for fellow citizens and devotion to the common good. As the NAACP has done, the president can denounce Senator Tommy Tuberville, Republican from Alabama's remarks that black people are criminals as flat out racist, ignorant, and utterly sickening, as well as condemn the party that promotes a centuries-old lie about black people. For goodness sake, Rubin writes, what kind of people are we? If we want a decent, competent, and law-abiding country, we need to elect decent, competent, and law-abiding representatives. Biden is well situated, perhaps the politician best situated, to make a plea that we elect politicians who represent the best, not the worst we can be. If the GOP thinks the best we can do is the likes of Herschel Walker and Doug Mastriano, Democrats can seize the high ground on family values and character.
I mean, these guys have been lying about family values and character all along, man. It's been a joke. I mean, I can't. It took Trump to tear the facade down. Ruben writes,
and aren't
finally
we also the real patriots?
Yes,
like
yes,
you and I
are,
especially,
yes, without question. Much more so than a guy like Van Orden.
Or CJ.
As Biden writes, national security. Biden as commander-in-chief can make a powerful argument that Republicans time and again have put national security in jeopardy. A party that praises Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, calls for a war on the FBI, excuses the snatching of sensitive documents, and refuses to investigate an armed insurrection cannot be put in charge of intelligence committees, Pentagon funding, or any other aspect of national security. This is the most critical midterm in our history, and arguably the most critical election ever. Biden can effectively link arms with Rep. Liz Cheney to make the case that you cannot give people who threaten democracy, not to mention sane governance, the reins of power. Come to think of it, maybe they should cut some ads together, writes Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post. I think these are great points. They're easily understandable. And I think it's not just the closing message argument for Biden. I think it's a closing argument for many of these Democratic candidates. I know we talked a bit about Mandela going after Ron Johnson during their debate on his insurrectionist bastardness. And I think there's lots of opportunity for Democrats to do the same with lots of these election denying Republicans.
If Republicans win the House, Kevin McCarthy, ? Will be the Speaker of the House. I can't see it, Tom. I really can't. But, you know, there is a little opinion about Kevin McCarthy as well. You know, remember Kevin McCarthy was sort of the target of the January 6th, and he took great umbrage at the time. You know, they were trying to F and kill him. But, you know, he's changed a little, Tom, because he can sense power. And they think they got a red wave of brewing. At least on the House side, you know, between the gerrymander and, you know, a few fortunate hops, they think they're going to win the House for surezies. And Kevin McCarthy wants nothing more in this life than to be Speaker of the House. But Kevin McCarthy's rage at Trump over the January 6th may signal danger ahead. Oh no, danger, Will Robinson. Dom, as a mob rampaged the Capitol to overturn Donald Trump's presidential re-election loss, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is said to have screamed on the phone at Trump, "They're trying to effing kill me." A few weeks later, when details about the California Republicans' fears on January 6th went public, McCarthy reportedly redirected his fury away from Trump and towards another GOP lawmaker who dared to tell the truth about his phone call with Trump. These revelations, courtesy of 2 new books about Trump and the GOP, illustrate in fresh detail, Dom, the craven depths McCarthy plumbed to protect Trump from accountability related to the January 6th, after initially being horrified by Trump's role in the insurrection. Now, if a guy, I'm just deciding here, Dom, but if a guy, let's say Dom, directed a crowd of thousands to try and effing kill me,
hang Mike Crute. Hang Mike Crute.
I would have a hard time getting over that. You know, moving on for the sake of political ambition.
See, that's because you're not in a cult. See, if you're in a cult, right, and you think I'm a billionaire and I'm your leader, you will kiss my ass in due course.
Dominic, here is the question Greg Sargent raises. This also raises a forward-looking question. What is a man who literally feared that a Trump-incited mob would kill him, then spent the next 20 months engaged in a cover-up on Trump's behalf, capable of doing for Trump should he become House Speaker?
Right. And you could say that for every Republican.
Dominic, McCarthy's call with Trump is detailed in journalist Robert Draper's new account of the radicalization of the GOP. It had already been reported that McCarthy pleaded with Trump to calm the rioters, to which Trump replied, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are. In Draper's new account, we learned McCarthy feared his life was about to come to a violent end. After Trump snarled at McCarthy, should be more upset this happened. More upset, McCarthy yelled back incredulously, according to an account he gave a few hours later to a Republican colleague. They're trying to effing kill me. Because you don't love them enough. After McCarthy's security detail removed him, Draper reports, another Republican lawmaker remained behind, hiding crouched on a toilet while rioters tore through McCarthy's suite. Bet it was Matt Gaetz, but anyways. Despite all this, McCarthy quickly pivoted to helping Trump obfuscate about the run-up to what happened that day. Dominic, the second book by Post reporter Karum Dirahan and Political's Rachel Bade, reports that after Rep. Jamie Herrera Butler, Republican from Washington, revealed some details about the McCarthy-Trump screaming match, McCarthy raged at her over it. Here's one last quote I'll give them. I alone am taking all the heat to protect people from Trump. I alone am holding the party together, he yelled at Rep. Jamie Herrera Butler during a previously undisclosed meeting at McCarthy's office, February 25th, 2021. I've been working with Trump to keep him from going after Republicans like you and blowing up the party and destroying all our work.
Cody, though they're both denying the account, note McCarthy's fear that if Republicans publicly told the truth about Trump's January 6th related conduct, it would provoke retaliation from Trump, fracturing the party. This book is clear on that point, reporting that McCarthy's tirade launched what would become a GOP-wide campaign to whitewash what happens. I would just say look at Ron Johnson. That whitewash included opposing a bipartisan commission to examine January 6th, trying to install Trumpist saboteurs on the House Select Committee that Democrats subsequently created, and refusing to testify to it himself. What's now clearer than ever is that McCarthy saw helping with Trump's insurrection cover-up, which itself is arguably an extraordinary betrayal to the country, as essential to keeping the GOP united and on a path to win the House majority. Rep. Jimmy Raskin, a member of the January 6th committee, says this new reporting strengthens the case that Trump sought to use mob violence to obstruct the official proceeding of counting the presidential elector as a potential crime by impeding the lawmakers themselves. This is a meaningful corroboration detail in the already abundant evidence that Trump set about to interfere with this crucial federal proceeding, the peaceful transfer of power, noting that it underscores McCarthy's complicity in helping Trump cover up for the dangerous violence that he unleashed. Now imagine McCarthy as Speaker of the House, someone capable of going to such extreme lengths for Trump in order to continue, quote unquote, holding the party together, would probably be willing to maximally employ the power of the House to harass or defund investigations or even prosecutions of Trump, as Trump is already demanding. Some House Republicans are already floating ways a new majority could target investigations or prosecutions. Government shutdowns or debt ceiling breaches could be marshaled towards that end. If Trump is running for president in 2023 while investigations continue, impairing them would be even more imperative for McCarthy's goal of holding the party together. A House Speaker willing to go to extreme lengths for Trump would also be in a position to help Trump or an imitator steal the 2024 election. If the Electoral Count Act of 1887 is not revised and a democracy sabotaging GOP governor could certify fake electors in a swing state, do you doubt that McCarthy's House would vote to count those sham electors, creating chaos or worse? Trump was happy to put McCarthy's life in danger, but McCarthy still quickly scrambled to kiss Trump's ass, as Trump likes to put it, Raskin told me. He added that the GOP has become a dangerous cult of personality filled with toadies, sycophants, and liars. They are a threat to constitutional democracy. The new McCarthy revelations are not merely about filling in the historical record. They're a clear warning of the future dangers our democracy faces, an opinion piece by Greg Sargent in the Washington Post.
Dom, we're here to make that warning all across the state of Wisconsin. And you can be a part. You can warn people. I can warn you. CJ's in the queue. If you don't get there, he might be next at 844-967-2789.
19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Feel like your emotions are all over the place? A healthy routine that includes enough sleep, exercise, and proper nutrition can help you feel more centered.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Natalie Kyoko, and I know what it's like to struggle with mental health issues. If you have a friend that's going through a tough time, now is the perfect moment to reach out. Learn how to start the conversation at seizetheawkward.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the JED Foundation.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
Relative to population, I believe Waukesha County is running like twice the mortality rate of Dane County.
Right. Well, and then you and your wife braved Mayville to see the band or the play.
But man, I'm vaxxed, I'm boosted, I'm feeling pretty good about life.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about good shape, but I'm vaxxed and I'm boosted.
Yeah, did you have a couple glasses of wine up there?
No wine, lots of rum, tum-tum.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstad at the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I am proud to introduce you to Choice, our new pink grapefruit-flavored hard seltzer. Choice was made in collaboration with Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin, and 5% of the proceeds from every can goes to support them and their fight for reproductive freedom. Choice Hard Seltzer tastes great and comes in at only 105 calories per can. Go to our website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, to find where you can buy Choice Hard Seltzer.
To become available across the country. Now is the time to get informed. Get the latest information at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. A message brought to you by the Ad Council and the CDC.
Charged, never convicted. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up right now. 844-967-2789. Before we get to the phones, Curdy, I want to throw this one last one out there. The debate yesterday, Tim Ryan lit up Vance. And I want to read just a little bit from the Post. I think this
Ohio Senate race.
Yes, I think this is something that the Republicans or the Democrats should be putting onto the Republicans at every debate, at every opportunity. Just a couple paragraphs. Contrary to Republican claims that Democrats are soft on crime, Ryan skewered Vance for promoting the Legal Defense Fund for insurrectionists who assaulted police at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. So Ryan's debating Vance. Vance was promoting the Legal Defense Fund, for the insurrectionist bastards. Here's what Ryan had to say. Can you imagine one guy saying out of one side of his mouth, he's pro-cop, and out of the other side of his mouth, he's raising money for the insurrectionists who are beating up the Capitol Police, Ryan declared. Ryan not only tied Vance to Trump, but also to the entire loony band that now dominates the GOP. You're running around with Lindsey Graham, who wants a national abortion ban. You're running around with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is the absolute looniest politician in America. This is a dangerous group. I mean, I think the Dems, as part of the closing message, if you believe, and I do, that democracy is literally on the ballot, and I've had friends of mine that are, independent, not really pay attention, sometimes Republicans, sometimes Dem, we all have friends like that, coming up to me like, wow, really, what do you think? Because some people are just now, 4 weeks out, starting to pay attention. So I get it.
Undecided voters.
What do? And it's very simple. You go Dem. None of the other things matter. Tax rates don't matter when you're living under a fascist fist. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not going to pay anything anyway. They're going to come take what they want from you. Fascism kills democracy. This is not about what the marginal income tax rate should be. You know what I'm saying? This is about whether or not elections matter, or if the losing side just can put enough people in the street to beat and intimidate everyone else to going their way.
Just for the record, Stom, the marginal tax rate should be significantly higher, to my opinion.
Thank you for
we
your
can talk
opinion.
Policy. 844-967-2789. Drew from Marshall. Welcome, Drew. What do you got for us?
Hey, Drew.
Hey, I think your advertising situation is a no-brainer for me. You know, every commercial that's going to be broadcast on your stations. So for everyone, you're an opinion station, right? So
yes, sir.
Everyone that pops up, you have a little script for your people to read. Take the money and get that ink. Wait till it's dry. Take the money and run. Sell all the ads you want, and then as soon as they get done, you have a little thing to read that disavows everything in the previous 30 seconds. So there you go.
You know, I've often scratched my head, Drew, when I hear like Democrats advertising on right-wing talk radio, you know, trying to find the center or persuadable voters, whatever their logic. And then I hear the host come back immediately after the commercial break and crap all over the messages supporting the Democrats, right? And I have taken the thought process, Drew. Well, couldn't that be us? Couldn't we just choose to crap all over the political messaging going against our favorites? But here's the problem, Drew.
Oh,
it's not just the news talk stations. It's the country stations. And those stations, you know, I mean, dude, I don't know if you watched or listened to the Packer game or the Badger game or try to turn on, you know, just music on the radio. That is where they are inundating our audience as well. And the frustration I have, Drew, is on a country stick, you know, Hank Williams Jr. ain't going to respond to them with the truth. He's just going to sing his song.
Okay. So on those things, you have like a 10-second rebut from the People for People Corporation.
Right.
Let them do it for you.
You know, I like how you think, Drew. Now,
Man,
our
Drew,
audience
I
is
like
creative,
that.
aren't they?
Yes, they certainly are. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate
Beautiful
the call, man.
Marshall, Wisconsin. 844.
There's a tear in my beer.
967-2789. Before we get to any other callers in queue, I want to, I got one last story for the day. Brett Favre, the former Hall of Fame quarterback of the Packers.
Yes.
Claims he's been smeared by the media over welfare allegations. Smeared by the media. Fake news. Here is what is being reported over at the Daily Beast. NFL star Brett Favre is now claiming he's being smeared after allegations emerged of his involvement in a federal welfare scandal that pulled $77 million from impoverished Mississippians, instead putting the funds in the coffers of public officials and their pet projects. Here's what Favre said. I've been unjustly smeared in the media. I've done nothing wrong. It's past time to set the record straight. Now, text messages reportedly show that in August of 17, the former NFL player asked nonprofit director Nancy New outright, if you were to pay me, is there anything the media could find out where it came from and how much? New pleaded guilty to bribery and fraud charges in April. Favre, who was accused of lobbying for some of the funds to go towards a University of Southern Miss volleyball stadium, you know, where his daughter plays volleyball, faces no criminal charges. I'm going to throw a little three-letter word in there. Yet. No one ever told me, and I did not know that the funds designated for welfare recipients were going to the university or me. Now, he took $1.1 million in no-show jobs for motivational speeches, Don.
I'm a motivational speaker.
Wait, where do you think Favre went to cry fake news?
At a van down by the river?
Fox News Digital.
Of course.
Final quote from Favre. My goal was and always will be to improve the athletic facilities at my university. It's doing it for the student athletes, Tom. 844-967-2789 against my better judgment. CJ, you get the last word. What is it?
Hey, CJ.
Oh, boy. Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. The only, your tirade, you forgot one thing.
What's that?
In a democratic world right now. Your party controls everything, and it's a disaster. So I got a couple questions, though, if I could. What police organizations are supporting the backtracking, defunding candidate that you guys...
I bet the U.S. Capitol Police would support Mandela Barnes over Ron Johnson, let's say, CJ?
I bet they...
And you say backtracking, CJ, but Ron Johnson admitted during the debate that Mandela Barnes never called for defunding the police.
You know, but, you know, you forgot to mention today the John Durham trial started.
Oh, what a joke. Really, CJ, you're hanging your hat on the Durham investigation at this late hour, dude?
Party. Yep. And on January 6th, I guess inflation numbers come out. So trying to distract from that disaster too, and the Armageddon.
Armageddon? I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, CJ, but thanks for playing. Thank you all for listening to the Devil's Advocates. Thank you, Dan Schaffer. Thank you, Batman. Stick around. Native Roots Radio and no outplay music.
The investigation into the January 6th attack at the Capitol continues this week. Tune to your local civic media radio station for special live coverage of the House committee hearing Thursday starting at noon. Following the hearing, your favorite hosts will be talking about the information revealed and what it means to you. Insight you won't find anywhere else. Listen Thursday, October 13th at noon here on your local civic media radio station and streaming on the Civic Media app.
Join the WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM The Shaw team when we broadcast live from the Waukesha Farmers Market, beginning Saturday, June 4th and lasting all summer long.